What's up, guys? Welcome to the Second Take. Some people say the West Coast is the best coast, but we say the Second Take is the best take. I'm Zach.
I'm Jonah.
And we're going to talk to you. We're going to change the show up a little bit today. It's going to be more of a debate format, so you guys can really get to see how Jonah and I disagree on a lot of things in sports.
Exactly. It's going to be great. This is going to be a pattern when we're talking about, especially during football season, we agree on almost nothing.
Yeah.
So this will be good.
Definitely. So you want to give a little plug about our social media?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find us on Twitter now. We're at Second Take Sport 5. The second with the two ND Take Sport 5. That's our Twitter handle. You can follow us there if you're on Twitter. And we also have a website. You want to give everybody the URL for that?
Yeah, sure. It's www.secondtakesports.weebly.com. It's up. We'll put it on Twitter and everything, but it'll be easy to find. That's where we're going to put. We'll have like a little chat every now and again, and we'll have our videos up there. And it's a good way to keep in touch with people that listen and vice versa. So we're going to start out today by a great piece of news I woke up to. Capitals won the President's Trophy. Clinched number one seed in the playoffs for the NHL, and hopefully this is the year after the last feels like a century with Alexander Ovechkin and nothing good came of it.
Hey, well, the good thing with the Capitals getting the President's Trophy is that their franchise history suggests there's no way they can blow this, so it'll be great. There's just no chance of blowing it.
Except for the last time. And the time before that, and the time before that.
But we'll see.
So, yep, Capitals looking good so far, but hopefully that continues. And instead of harping on hockey, we're going to move into the best sporting event of the year and get into the Final Four. So, Jonah, what's going on with Syracuse?
Well, neither of us believed in Syracuse at all. From the moment the bracket was announced, we were texting each other saying Syracuse is not belonging in this tournament. I promised my friend and neighbor Todd Demena that I would give him a shout out if Syracuse made the Final Four. not expect that would happen, but here's your shout out, Todd. Hope you're listening. The thing with the Syracuse team is when you have a team that's like, if it's a program that's like this well run, despite the NCAA allegations, obviously, but despite those, you certainly can't argue that this is a program that doesn't know what it's doing. And I think that obviously this surprised a lot of people. They had some good luck with Michigan State getting knocked out early for sure, but I think this team is, to beat Virginia is pretty impressive. I thought Virginia might be the best team in the tournament.
Yeah, you're higher on Syracuse than I am. I like Malachi Richardson and Leiden a lot. Cooney is potentially the worst player in college basketball. And Mike Benajay.
We're still not fans of Cooney.
Yeah, and Benajay wasn't cut out for Duke, so he had to go to Syracuse. But with Leiden, if Leiden and Richardson can keep making shots, they'll be good. But the best team they played was Dayton until they got to the Elite Eight, obviously. So that's a 7 seed right there. So they had an not easy, but just not as tough as it should have been, road to the Elite Eight. Then they played a team in Virginia that's allergic to the Final Four. So I don't know what that was, but I'm still not sold. I don't think Boeheim's a good coach at all. I know the 2-3 zone is like their staple, but there's a lot of coaches that can play 2-3 zone and also know how to get into different situations. Like if you saw, he started pressing and they absolutely dominated Virginia on the press. Then they took their foot right off the gas pedal as soon as they got the lead. So most coaches probably would have continued with the press a little bit there. So I think, I don't know. I don't like your UNC team that much either, but I think they're going to hit a brick wall with UNC.
Yeah, I certainly don't think they're going to beat UNC. I'm going to continue with the message that we can't see this left. But I think that it certainly is super impressive performance from Syracuse. It hasn't just been luck. And what you said about the whole 2-3 zone thing has some merit. I was watching the the studio show for March Madness, and Charles Barkley was saying how Jim Boeheim might have had some even better performing Syracuse teams if he had laid off the 2-3 zone every now and then. So I think that there's an argument to be made though. This is one of Boeheim's best, if not his best, coaching jobs, because this is certainly the least talented team that he's ever taken this far.
Yeah.
There's no Carmelo Anthony on this team.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just don't. So, like, in my opinion, a good coach is one that adjusts to the game situations. So, like, I know I'm a homer, but Duke, for example, when they played against UNC Wilmington and against Yale, both times their lead started to slip away a little bit. They were playing man-to-man defense and immediately switched to 1-3-1 zone, and they just dominated from there on out. Like, Yale's little comeback was stymied by a 1-3-1 zone. So that, like, I don't know. Most coaches will switch when something's not working. So Syracuse was getting blown out. They switched, started pressing, got the lead, and then went right back to what's normal. I mean, it worked. They still won the game, but I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I do think you got to give Boeheim some credit for the press that you mentioned before. I mean,
yeah.
Like maybe even if he should have stayed with it later, possibly it completely changed the course of the game. Knocked a really disciplined Virginia team totally out of whack, and that was something that really no other team could do, was fluster Virginia this year.
Yeah, that was the game right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's a heartbreaking loss for Virginia. I really feel for anybody who's a Virginia fan, because that's a loss you're going to remember for a long time, especially with this team having a history of avoiding the Final Four as it has. It really looked like this was the year, and then it wasn't. So that's tough if you're a Virginia fan, but you got to give Syracuse a lot of credit too, I think.
Yeah, they went farther than, probably everyone but Carmelo Anthony thought they would, so I guess.
Right, exactly.
You definitely have to give them some credit. I don't know. I'm never going to pick this team to win anything. I don't think I'll pick this team all tournament long, and they're in the Final Four, so we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
So, off the topic of Jim Boeheim being a terrible coach, in my opinion, we're going to go to who is the best coach left in the tournament. So we got Roy Williams from UNC, Boeheim from Syracuse, Kruger from Oklahoma, and Jay Wright from Villanova.
Well, this is a tough question because obviously my instinct is to go with Roy, and I think that's what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah, here comes a good argument right here.
Because you can't argue with results. I think there's nobody in this tournament that's still left that has been to as many Final Fours as Roy Williams, developed as many NBA players as Roy Williams, and is also as good a recruiter as Roy Williams. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not going to argue that he's as good a coach as Coach K or anything. I'm not going to argue he's as good a recruiter as Coach Cal. But I think out of all the coaches left, I think the results clearly show Roy Williams is the best one left. I mean, I think I know who you're going with here, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So you know how I feel about UNC, and I think Roy Williams is a good coach, but I would argue that he's not the best talent developer. Or no, that's not true. He's a good talent developer, but when he gets the premier talent, I feel like he doesn't ever push them to the next level. So like the first name that comes to mind is Harrison Barnes. Coming into NCAA is supposed to be one of the best players like we've ever seen, and basically did nothing except for like one 40-point outbreak. And now is a role player on the Warriors. Granted, starter on the best team in basketball.
Wait, hold on. I think well, he may not have done everything he was expected to do in college. He's now like a vital part of one of the best teams we've ever seen in the history of the NBA. I don't think that's nothing.
I think they'd be better without him.
You think the Warriors would be better without him, you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
he goes 0 for 10 every game to start every game.
I mean, obviously he's a streaky kind of guy, and he's been certainly benefited from being on a team that's good, but he's shooting 38% from threes, 11 points, 5 rebounds a game in only 30 minutes. Like, he's a player that they use a lot, and
Yeah, but
so does Harrison Barnes.
they take a ton of shots every game, so he's getting. I mean, if you ever like some possessions, the ball will go to him in the corner and it's never coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's an all-star, but I think to say that he's, a bust is pretty unfair also.
Compared to what he was supposed to be, I think he's a complete bust.
Well, I mean,
He came in and people were arguing he could be as good as LeBron James, and he's not even sniffing that.
yeah, but like those, I don't know, that happens all the time. People
Oh yeah, no, I'm
are
not.
really good.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's fair to pin that on Roy, is what I'm saying.
I just think with his talent level and his potential, with where like his improvement over his freshman year, I don't think there was any. If there was, there wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, I see what your argument is. It's just like, out of all these coaches left, I mean, the two that have won a national championship are Roy and Boeheim. And we both agree that that Boeheim's not our favorite coach.
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. So I think that looking at results, like, I don't know, Final Four appearances, players sent to the NBA, I mean, I feel like you're going to say Jay Wright here, but I don't think that he can compare to Roy Williams in those respects. I don't know.
On the flip side of what I just said about Williams, I think he's a great talent developer of players who are slightly underrated. Like Bryce Johnson, for example, didn't really have an offensive game his first 2 years in college, and he could go off for 40 and 20 literally any night right now. And same with Marcus Page too. Marcus Page, I mean, Marcus Page was a great point guard coming out of high school, but I would argue he got a lot better in college.
But that's what I'm saying. He might not develop, NBA superstars, but he creates solid NBA role players out of guys who are not supposed to even make it to the NBA.
Yeah.
Which
No,
I think
I would
is
agree.
something.
I would agree. But yeah, I am gonna go with Jay Wright.
I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say, make your case for Jay Wright. He's certainly the best dress coach in the tournament.
Definitely. So I would argue that the talent that he gets is probably the least, with all due respect to every player in Villanova, is the least of any major program that is always making tournament runs. And I know Villanova doesn't usually go that far, but they're always in it, and they're always 1 or 2 or 3. And I know that they don't go far often, but I just think that what he does with the talent he has is remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Villanova has overachieved in some senses, in the sense of the talent that they've had, but they've also underachieved in some senses. I mean, they've been high seeds and lost early several times.
Definitely, but
So,
like their matchup against Oklahoma, I would argue that Oklahoma is better at literally every single position than Villanova.
but there's certainly no guarantee Oklahoma wins that game just
Exactly.
because of that.
And-
I mean, I guess you're saying that, I don't know, that like they're an overachieving team in general, despite their early.
Yeah, what he does with the talent they have, I think, is incredibly overachieving.
Yeah, I mean, they always have a team. He doesn't really create NBA players for the most part. I mean, there's been a couple guys come out of there, but the guys that he has had as impact players at Villanova haven't generally become NBA players. Scotty Reynolds comes to mind.
Yep. Yeah.
And so, I think that, I certainly think he's a good coach. I just don't, I just think the results, and what they've done with talent that they've had in terms of going far in the tournament, I think that that's certainly the Roy Williams advantage.
And we can't not talk about Kruger here taking, 3 or 4 teams to the Elite Eight, I think it was.
Yeah, he's actually, right, he's the coach people don't talk about because people haven't heard of him as much as Roy and Boeheim and Jay Wright. I mean, this is a Final Four with a lot of notable coaches. But I think that, you don't want to overlook him either. I mean, this is an Oklahoma team that he's really built and you got to give a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, and he just keeps taking program after program to the next level, which is pretty impressive. But I mean, any way you put it, there's a lot of good coaches left. You're gonna need a good coach in order to get to the Final Four, and that's what all these programs have.
Right, like ultimately, it's the players that are going to decide who's cutting on the nets on Monday night. But I think that we're sort of past the point in the tournament where the coaches make the biggest difference, in my opinion. I think that once you get to the later rounds, you need players to take over. Coaching adjustments aren't going to do it all by themselves. And so, I think that, I don't know, I'd go with Roy as the best coach left, but I think ultimately that's not what's going to win the tournament for UNC.
I also don't think there's a wrong answer. So, any way you put it.
You can make arguments for Boeheim even. I mean, you can make arguments for any of the coaches left.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I want to move to another question we had. That was, which player do you think is going to do the most to improve his draft stock to climb draft boards in the Final Four?
There's so many choices in this one because there's so many players that are like on the cusp of like mid to late first round that are going to be in this Final Four. So the easy answer is Buddy Hield, but I'm not going to go with that, I don't think. I think I'm going to go with Malachi Richardson. Somebody who was someone who most people have never heard of until probably the ACC tournament, if not until the actual NCAA tournament started. But he's got 20 in his last 3 games, I think. He had 2 points at halftime against Virginia, and they were down 15. Comes out in the second half, drops 21 points, and they win the game. He hit 3 after 3 after 3 in Malcolm Brogdon's eye. Went by him whenever he pleased. He's a freshman that probably wasn't going to be drafted and was definitely going to have to go through at least another year at Syracuse, if not a couple more, to now potentially being a mid-first round pick with the chance to climb even higher if he keeps performing.
Yeah, I think he has certainly shown more to put himself on the map in this tournament than anybody else has. I mean, I still think that he would benefit from another year in school.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you should leave right now. I'm just saying he has a good chance to climb.
Right, yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean that he'll necessarily use the other year in school. We know sometimes guys don't do that.
Right.
But I think that he's certainly put himself on the radar. He's got he has a skill set that the NBA teams really like.
Yeah, he's got good size. He's got a good body. Can get to the rim. I mean, he's showing now he can get to the rim. That was kind of a question early on.
Right, for sure.
Can hit the 3, and I think he's a better passer than he shows. So we'll see what happens in the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, right. For him, it's going to depend on how well he performs against a very athletic UNC team that's maybe the closest thing you're going to find to an NBA team just in terms of athleticism, like whether he can perform as well against them as he has against some other weaker teams.
Yeah, I think Justin Jackson against him is going to be a pretty interesting matchup.
I think that's going to be a good test of his ability in terms of the NBA, and I think that I wouldn't come out just yet if I were him. I think that if he has another year in school, he could potentially push himself into the first round. Especially if he performs well in the Final Four here. But, I think he's a really good player, and I've been very impressed with him so far.
Definitely. So who do you think is going to climb?
I, of course, am going to go with my man, Bryce Johnson. I think that he's been criminally overlooked by NBA teams this whole time. I mean, I get the limitations with him. He's an old school, he's an old school power forward who doesn't really shoot a lot, and that's kind of going out of style in the current NBA. So I understand why he's not looked at as a lottery pick. That makes sense. But he's a double-double machine in college. He's one of the best college rebounders I've ever seen. He's super athletic. He leaps off the floor. He's quick. And I think that if he can bulk up a little bit and add some strength, then it'll be less necessary that he develops a real perimeter game. And I think that there's a lot of NBA teams, maybe in the early 20s, late teens in the draft, who could really use a guy like Bryce Johnson. And I think he's been climbing up from the bottom of the first round closer to the middle of it in this tournament. I think he'll continue to do that throughout the Final Four.
So, fun fact about Bryce Johnson, he's averaging 23 and 21 and a half, against Duke this year.
So you're very familiar with how much I love Bryce Johnson. He's averaging 17 and 11 on the year as a whole.
Yeah, so if that doesn't tell you something.
60% from the floor. I mean, sure, he doesn't shoot threes, but not everybody in the NBA shoots threes. If you're looking for a guy who can really be, your banger down low, get rebounds, offensive and defensive, I think Bryce Johnson is going to show a lot of NBA people what he can do in the Final Four, and I think that you could potentially see him at the back end of the lottery, right after the lottery in the first round of next year's draft, after this tournament's over. I think that at the very least, he's a very solid NBA role player.
Yeah, I think he needs to develop at least a mid-range game where he can consistently knock down 16, 17 footers. But the way he rebounds and his energy, most importantly.
He's too small to be a 5.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to be, he'll never be a real stretch 4, but I think that if he develops some kind of mid-range game, if he has a passable jump shot, then he becomes a guy who could really be a starting power forward in the NBA for a lot of teams.
Yeah, and I think his most important thing is his motor and energy, just because he's not going to quit on anything. He gets everyone fired up around him, and I think that's a telltale sign of a good player. So I think if he does go to one of the later teams, like let's say Atlanta or something, he kind of reminds me of, I think he's going to be a little bit better than this, but of like Amir Johnson, who just gets like 15 rebounds and just is all over the stat sheet, but doesn't do anything like to blow you away.
Yeah, I was gonna say he reminds me a little bit of Jared Sullinger, but like a better version of him.
Yeah, I just feel like Sullinger has a little bit better jump shot. That's why I was thinking that too,
right.
But he does stretch it now a little bit. But I think he can definitely fill a role in the NBA for sure.
Yeah, I think he's a useful player. I think a lot of some concerns about him apparently were sort of on the maturity side of things.
Yeah, I could see that.
But which is fair, but I think a lot of guys that get missed by the NBA, that fall through the draft and end up being really good, a lot of the concerns with those guys were just about maturity, and I think that teams will regret passing him up for just that reason.
Yeah, I would agree. So I like Malachi Richardson, and Jonah likes Bryce Johnson. Both, they're going to be facing off against each other. Whoever has the bigger game probably going to get the win. I think, so I guess let's just go into who we think is going to win those games and who's going to win the championship then.
Yeah, so I think we both have North Carolina over Syracuse.
Yeah.
We've been burning against Syracuse more than that. But I think North Carolina is probably the best team left in this tournament. I'm not just saying that because I'm a UNC fan. I think that they have a lot of depth, they have a lot of athleticism, and I think that they're going to frustrate Syracuse.
Yeah.
I think they're going to ultimately pull that out.
Yeah, I agree. I think North Carolina's going to get that win. I think the way they play in the post is going to shred a 2-3 zone. You kind of saw that against Virginia a little bit. Anthony Gill kind of did whatever he wanted, at least at the beginning, and then they kind of slid off at the end. But Marcus Page and Barry are too good to get sped up like that, so I don't think they're going to have a problem getting into the zone. That's where Marcus Page makes his money, and just I can see him throwing lobs and dump downs to Meeks and Bryce Johnson for all 40 minutes to win that one.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if Bryce didn't get 20 and 10 in this game, at least.
And I have a feeling that Marcus Page will have at least double-digit assists.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think if any team could pick apart that zone, it's this team.
Definitely.
So I'm going to go with UNC there.
So what do you have for the other side of the bracket, Villanova, Oklahoma?
That's a tough one. I would automatically pick Oklahoma, like in any other scenario. But the way that Villanova has been shooting the ball is a little bit insane. I feel like they haven't missed a shot all tournament. They also lost to Oklahoma by 23 in Hawaii earlier in the year. And as Jay Billis says, there's nothing better than seeing a team do so good that waxed you at the beginning of the year, and then you get to see them again in March. So that makes me a little skeptical, but I think I'm still going to hang on with Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Oklahoma too. I think that reason A for that pick is they just had the best player on court, and the best player left in the tournament in Buddy Hield. And I think that they're going to have a hard time guarding him. I mean, both of these teams have been pretty much dominant so far in the tournament. And I'm very impressed how both of these teams have played. They've encountered not much trouble with the teams they've faced so far. I mean, it was a tough matchup with Villanova against Kansas. Oklahoma was played tough by VCU. But I think that I think these teams are both very good, but I think that Oklahoma's deeper, and I think it's, as you mentioned before, Oklahoma crushed Villanova earlier this year, and while there's certainly the revenge factor for Villanova, it also points to the fact that Oklahoma has already beaten Villanova by over 20 this season.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you how good Oklahoma is.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a blowout like that, but I think this will be the better game of the two Final Four games. I think it'll be very interesting, but I think Oklahoma's going to pull it out.
So then that leaves us Oklahoma, UNC, and if I had to guess, that makes you pretty nervous.
Yeah, it does. I think there's a chance Buddy would score a solid 35 in that game. We're not necessarily riding on our defense, but I would still take UNC to win that game. I think we'd outplay them in the post. I think that our guards can handle them. I think even with a big game, I think we have the firepower to overcome that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take UNC in that game.
All right. I think just to hold my loyalties, I need to go with Oklahoma there.
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't know. It's hard. It's kind of like the NBA. It's hard to pick against Steph. It's hard to pick against LeBron. When you have the best player on the court, best player in the country, maybe it's hard to go against someone with that much talent. I think Isaiah Cousins is one of the most underrated players. I know sometimes he struggles from the field, but he penetrates the lane like no one else, and he makes Buddy Hield a lot better. And Jordan Woodard also, he makes him a lot better because he's a knockdown shooter when he gets his feet set. So if Isaiah Cousins can get into the lane, I think they can pull it out. I think that'd be a great final, but I'm gonna go with Oklahoma.
That would certainly be a really good game. I'm not predicting that UNC would win with any great amount of confidence, but I think that they're the best team left, and the best team left can overcome the best player left, and that's why I'm going to go with UNC.
All right. So with that wrap up of the NCAA and Final Four, let's just say our brackets weren't as good as we wanted them to be.
They never are.
It was a rough year with that. What was it? The East region or South region, Virginia? What were they? Midwest? Midwest, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks Syracuse, thanks Michigan State. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so next year we promise you that we will be better in our brackets, and hopefully the champion won't lose in the first round. So with that being said,
exactly, that was simple.
We'll move on to our little NBA segment. And the first question, which is burning down blocks in the NBA right now, will the Warriors get 73 wins?
So, just set the stage for that a little bit. The Warriors currently have 9 games left, and they have to win 7 of those to get to 73 wins, which, for those of you who don't know, would break the
all-time record for most wins by an NBA team this season.
And they have 2 left against the Spurs.
Yes, they have 2 left against the Spurs. And here's the schedule. They host the Wizards. They're at Utah the next day.
Tough one.
Then they have 4 home games in a row against Boston, Portland, Minnesota, and the Spurs. And they're at Memphis, at San Antonio, and then back home against Memphis to close the season.
The only things that make me nervous there are at Utah on a back-to-back, who just torched the Lakers by 41. I know it's the Lakers, but 41's a lot.
Yeah, your boy Rodney Hood was tearing them apart.
Oh, yeah, what else is new? Then, obviously, San Antonio games are trouble. And home against Portland, because it seems like Portland has their number, which is kind of funny to say with a team that could break the record. But Damian Lillard and McCollum always show up in those games.
They struggle with guards like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, any criticism of the Warriors is like has to go along with, but they're still winning 66 games. Like if they have trouble with some young quick point guards, and that's their number one issue, I think they'll be fine with that. But yeah, it's just the question is, are there 3 losses in here? And I don't think there are.
If they can, I think they'll at least split with San Antonio.
Yeah. If they split with San Antonio, they lose one other of these games. I think the Utah game could be a tough one, but
Only because it's at Utah, it's a back-to-back, and Utah slows the game down, which I think all 3 things could be serious problems for the Warriors.
right.
But, like I said with Buddy Hield, how can you pick against Steph Curry right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm happy to see this team really still going for it because obviously they're going to that record, but normally you don't see teams that are this good still playing hard at the end of the season. And I don't know. I think they get to 73. I think that if they do, it really makes an argument. I mean, obviously we haven't played the playoffs yet, so
Right.
we can't make the Birmingham best team ever status yet. But I think that there would certainly be an argument to be made if they made the finals and won 73 games. I mean, the fact that they've won 73 games in this era versus past eras, there's arguments for being more impressive because of just the conditioning of players these days and how the league is kind of more balanced. But there's also an argument that's less impressive than what the Bulls did because there's more teams and talents more spread out these days. But I don't know. I think there's an argument to be made the best teams I've ever seen. Everybody, whoever they're a fan of, really just enjoy watching these guys.
Yeah, I'm not only gonna say they're gonna get 73. I'm gonna say they're gonna get 75. I think they're gonna win the last 9. I think they're gonna that last week of the season. So they have 2 against the Grizzlies and 2 against the Spurs, right?
Yes.
That's
their last 4 games.
I'm gonna say that they are gonna blow out the Spurs at home, and then I think they're gonna go to San Antonio and break the that home win streak record of San Antonio, so that there's not 2 undefeated teams. And I think that knowing Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson, and especially Draymond Green and the attitude they play with, I think they're gonna use these last 9 games to not only put the NBA on notice, but put the world on notice. And Michael Jordan's that crying Michael Jordan sad face will be all over the internet when they break 72.
Yeah, right. And they won't even have to take pictures of those.
Yeah. Exactly.
But the funny thing is, actually, that Steve Kerr was part of both of those teams.
So he knows exactly what's about to happen and how to play.
Right. He was on that 72 win Bulls team, and now he's coaching this potentially as high as 75 Warriors team. And so maybe if you're just looking to do well in any sport, maybe the Capitals should hire Steve Kerr.
Or Luke Walton.
Right, yeah, Luke Walton coach half of the season too. Forget that.
40 and 40 or 40 and 4 or whatever he was.
Yeah, Luke Walton's like 30 will do.
Yeah.
And the Lakers will probably hire him and coach.
We'll see. The Lakers could have their own show if they needed to.
exactly. Well, yeah, that's if the Knicks don't hire, which
I don't.
I don't know how I feel about that, but
Well, when Phil Jackson leaves for LA, we'll see. So
yeah.
after talking about the Warriors, we both agree they're gonna get 73. I think they're gonna get 75. Let's go with the team with the best chance to shock the world in the playoffs.
Are we talking either conference here?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, okay. So, I think that the Portland Trail Blazers have a good shot to shock the world in the playoffs. If they can avoid playing the Spurs or the Warriors, if they can get to Oklahoma City in the first round, I think that they have a pretty decent shot at upsetting them as far as the Western Conference goes. I think the first round is going to be largely pretty boring. I think the Warriors would blow the doors off of either Houston or Dallas, and I don't think Utah would be able to keep up with San Antonio. But I think that Portland, Oklahoma City could be a really interesting series. I think that this Portland team has overachieved all year, and I think that they're pretty talented too. I mean, Lillard can go toe-to-toe with Westbrook in their scoring, and I don't know if they'll necessarily win that series, but I think they're going to get a lot closer to winning.
Yeah, and then I'm not gonna go with this team, but just talk about them real quick. Houston. So let's say they get the 8 seed, which I'm expecting them to.
Right, they're tied with Dallas right now for the 8 seed.
Yeah. So Houston against the Warriors. I don't think they're gonna get by the Warriors. I don't think anyone's getting by the Warriors. But James Harden is one of the best scorers in the world. So I mean, there's potential for that series to get a little scary for the Warriors at times. If James Harden drops 45 a couple times, watch out. But I think it'll be like a 6-game series or so. But I think it's just going to be closer than people are going to think. And then
I don't know. I mean, Harden certainly is a scorer. He's scoring especially well lately. I mean, he's practically averaging 30 over the last month. And so, I don't know, just like what I've seen from this team, I feel like this team cannot wait for the season to end. I feel like they're ready to just quit on everybody and everything. It's been like such a disappointing year for Houston. I mean, they're under 500 and they're supposed to be one of the top 4, if not top 2 teams in the West this year. And I don't know, we might see some last gasps of fight from them. But I think the Warriors would probably sweep them.
I think Houston's downfall all started with the Damian Lillard buzzer beater in Portland to win that series. What was that, 2 years ago, or was that last year?
I
think it was 2.
Did they play last? Yeah, I think it was, because I think
Houston played LA last year, right?
Houston played last year? I'm not sure, actually.
I think they played the Clippers. I think it was a 4-5 against the Clippers.
Hold on, let me look. I'm curious now. Last year they didn't play Portland. They played Dallas in the first round, and then they played the Clippers in the second round, and then lost to the Warriors in the conference final.
Gotcha. All right, so so I mean, we're not picking them to win, but I just think that some noise will be made there. But the team I'm going to go with is Utah. We just talked about them a little bit, but the way they slow the game down. So let's say they play San Antonio. San Antonio plays at a slow pace also. So there you go. That favors both sides, I guess. I think Rudy Gobert is a pretty solid big.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I think he can at least hang with LaMarcus Aldridge athletically, for that matter. Rodney Hood is having a breakout season, which, to be completely honest with you, I never saw coming. But good for him.
Even the Duke fans didn't see that.
Yeah,
so you know.
Exactly. And Gordon Hayward against Kawhi Leonard could be one of potentially the best playoff matchups in a long time. Just one-on-one, I mean, not like LeBron Curry kind of deal, but.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, he's a really solid player. I think that Utah's better than a 500 team. It's just how good the top 3 or 4 teams have been in the West, kind of like push down everybody else's records.
Yeah.
Because they just keep losing those teams. I think Utah's a really quality team.
I think Utah is a couple years ahead of their learning curve too. So, I
I
would.
think Portland is too. I like
Yeah.
both teams.
Oh yeah, Portland should have been one of the worst teams in basketball this year. They lost 4 or 5
In the
starters.
lottery this year, they're going to be the 6th seed in the West.
They lost
That's
80.
pretty impressive.
They lost 80% of their starting lineup, and they're about to make the playoffs. And that's like Damian Lillard deserves a hell of a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, obviously, there's no MVP consideration for anybody other than Steph, but I mean, this is a team that at first glance looks like they're like they're pushing Al-Farouq Aminu out there starting games like.
Plumlee.
Exactly. Yeah, this is exactly a recipe for a 6th seed in the Western Conference, but they're overachieving. Give a lot of credit to their coaching staff, a lot of credit to the players. Yeah, I think Portland and Utah are going to be teams to fear in the future.
Fun fact: C.J. McCollum hit a buzzer beater against Duke when he was on Lehigh to beat him in the first round as a 14 seed. Thank you.
Yes, I do actually remember that. It was pretty interesting.
Pretty terrible, if that's what
As
you
I
mean.
recall. Yeah.
So with that, let's just quickly say who's going to round out the West in the playoffs. So I think we both have Portland and Utah as the 6-7, right?
Yeah.
So then it's really just the
I
8
think-
seed.
Yeah, which is currently a tie between Houston and Dallas. I would not be shocked if Houston didn't make the playoffs.
And then who's behind Dallas?
Denver's behind Dallas. They're 5.5 games back.
Okay, so it's a 2-horse race.
Yeah.
So Dallas was like up there to start the year. They were like a 4 or 5. I mean, a little bit into the season.
Yeah, I think Dirk is willing this team to the finish line. He's been super impressive to me. This team I would have thought would have pretty much folded by now. They had some bad luck with the whole Jordan stock at the beginning of the season. But I don't know. I've been very impressed with the performance of this team so far. They do play each other one more time a week from tomorrow on ESPN, Houston and Dallas, so that'll be a good indicator of where each team's at. But I think the schedule doesn't really favor each team too closely. They each have a couple of tough matchups left. The Rockets have to play Cleveland and Oklahoma City, and then it's pretty easy down the stretch. The Mavs have to play Memphis, Clippers, and the Spurs still. So, and they have to play at Utah. So the schedule probably favors Houston, but I just like what I'm seeing in Dallas better.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Houston just because of James Harden. But Dirk Nowitzki's having maybe one of his best years since like when he was dropping 35 a game. But
Which is incredible. He's averaging 19 and 7. He's 37 years old. This is his 17th season.
yeah, and I think he's averaging 29 in his last like 7 games or something like that. So he's like, I mean, he's putting the team on his back.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped 40 against Portland.
Yeah, exactly. What 37-year-old drops 40 that's not named Michael Jordan? Like, I don't even.
It's incredible. I mean, he's probably the best non-American player ever, I think. I don't think there's an argument to be made for anybody else. And I think that if this is the last time we see him this season, then
He went out on top.
For sure.
He went out on top regardless of what they do in the playoffs because that's incredible basketball. So I'm picking Houston, but real quick, we didn't mention this. Memphis, their coach should be like they should make a statue for him because what they're doing without Marc Gasol, with basically a fully unhealthy starting lineup every single night. Conley hasn't been healthy all year. Randolph is relegated to a bench role. Who knows how that was going to work out? Worked out great. They have a disruptive lineup with Lance Stevenson, Matt Barnes. Who knows what could happen there? Matt Barnes trying to fight people in tunnels after games. And they're the 5 seed in the West. How is that even possible?
Yeah, their depth chart from ESPN right now lists their starting point guard as Raymond McCallum.
Who was waived from the Spurs, by the way.
Yeah, their starting point guard is Matt Barnes, backed up by Lance Stevenson, backed up by P.J. Harrison. Let's talk about character. And then their starting center is Lyle Hollins. I mean, it's incredible that this team has done anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, so this is a team that, I don't know, like, if you looked at these guys, right, and not to mention they have Zach Randolph, and Vince Carter, like these are all people that have had issues in the past. Chris Anderson they have, I mean, it's unbelievable how many guys they have who are considered, locker room cancers. All they need is J.R. Smith. But
that's a team that I would take into a street fight with me instead of a basketball arena.
Oh, absolutely. If you had to pick a team to win in just an all-out brawl, you'd pick Memphis in second.
Yeah. But somehow they're getting done, and somehow they're still a 5 seed. It seems like they're a 5 seed every year, or at least a 4 in that 4 or 5 matchup.
Yeah, don't rule out them giving the Clippers a real run in the first round.
Yeah, it seems like they always do. They're tough. Clippers don't like tough basketball, so I don't know. It wouldn't really surprise me, even though it should surprise me if Memphis wins that game, or the series.
Yeah, that would be the all-time great coaching job if Memphis won a first-round matchup. I mean, they're not beating Golden State, but if they can top the Clippers, who don't look so great themselves right now.
Yeah, getting Blake Griffin back in a couple games here, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, that would obviously be key.
So you want to go to our last question about the NBA then?
Yeah, sure. So, this is a big question. A lot of people have been talking about how transcendent this season from Steph Curry has been. And do you think Steph is having the best offensive season, at least in the history of the NBA?
I think this is
that's in play.
I think this is a resounding yes. He's seriously shooting better from just inside half court than most players are shooting from inside the paint. Like, that's, if any of you have played basketball, if you just think about that for a second, he's making more half court shots than you're making layups.
Yeah, he's like more efficient from beyond 30 feet than
that's not
making like all their layups, which is insane.
Like, you think, oh, someone hit a half quarter, like, that's awesome. You see the highlight everywhere. Steph's doing it every night, and he's doing it sometimes without the whistle, like during game action, sometimes during like a timeout or something. He hits shots from the tunnel before games. Like, the things that this man does with the basketball is incredible. He has potentially the best ball. I think Kyrie Irving has the best handle in the NBA, but Steph's right there behind him.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 30 points a game, which most guys who are shooters by trade never get to 30 points a game. Like, it used to be guys like him would just be spot up guys that come off the bench. Like, it's definitely a new era for basketball.
Like a JJ Redick type.
He's averaging 5 made threes a game. Like,
he could have over 400 in 1 year, which is just not even, like, the record was what, 283 or something before he broke it 5 times in a row.
Yeah, he broke it like in mid-season. He broke his own record.
Yeah, almost before the All-Star break, he broke it.
Yeah, and so he's shooting 50% from the field, 45% from 3, and 90% from the line. Like, if we're talking about just in terms of like shooting seasons, this is like beyond unprecedented.
And then he's what, 6 assists a game?
6.6, yeah. 5.4 rebounds.
Exactly. So he's 30. Let's say 37 and 5. Like, what? He's a 6'2" point guard who doesn't, like, might weigh 180 pounds.
The dude lifts at 190 and that's dicey.
Yeah. No way. So, is he having the best season ever offensively? I don't know. It's so hard to argue that he's not, because, I mean, he's doing things with a basketball that haven't been seen in a really long time, making shots that I've never seen ever. I mean, I went to the Wizards-Warriors game in D.C., and my mouth was open the entire game. He had 51, and it was like the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
I'm so jealous that you were at that game.
Every person that listens to this podcast, bucket list, go see Steph Curry in real life. It'll be the best thing you've ever done.
Well, they're playing the Wizards again tonight in Golden State.
Yeah, but I gotta go across country. That's if I can fly to Oakland.
I don't know, it might be worth it if you can catch a flight.
Seriously.
Catch a flight to Oakland.
But yeah, do you think he's having the best season ever?
I think he's having the best offense ever. I mean,
so the argument I can think of is like Wilt Chamberlain having like 50 and 20, but that's like, I mean, the teams are scoring 200 points a game almost, so it's a little different.
Yeah, and like the rules, I don't know, they had to change the rules for him, and like the game was totally not the same then. Like he could just absolutely dominate in a way that like I don't know, there's so much more athletic now than it was then. I think obviously averaging 50 a game like sounds pretty
Insane.
awesome it is, but I think you have to kind of take stats like that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, so the argument I have with that one is, so Wilt was, he's 7-footer, in my opinion, even though sometimes he's listed 6'10", 6'11", whatever. I think he's 7-footer.
Yeah.
So, most people that were guarding him were like 6'5". So, yeah, you're going to average a lot of points. You're going to turn around and hit a little hook shot over him.
You're going to hit a little hook shots over people. That's just how it works.
Exactly. So now Steph Curry is essentially the exact opposite. He's smaller than pretty much everyone he's facing and has to do it with skill and talent, has to score this way. So the shots he makes are seriously not real life. I challenge any of you to make 3 of those in a game ever. And probably when you take one,
every game.
yeah. And if you ever took one, I'm sure the coach would probably pull you out in a second because those are terrible shots for anyone not named Steph Curry.
I know. It's just he has to consider his coaching completely differently than he used to.
Yeah.
I mean, like those used to be shots where like you'd bench out immediately, like you said, if you took those shots. But like for him, those are good shots.
Exactly.
Good shots is a wide open corner 3 yards for anybody else. It's like a contest. 27-footer. He just nails it all the time.
Yeah, and he shoot the confidence that he has is what makes him as good as he is. Yes, he has crazy talent. Yes, he has great handle. Yes, his jump shot is so smooth, so quick, and he practices his ass off. But his confidence, he started out the year hotter than anyone has ever started out a season. I think he had over 40 in 2 games the first week of the season. So he started out this year red hot and is still red hot, and it's insane when you can make the argument that the reigning MVP should also be the most improved player. That's mind blowing to me.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, I think the reason that people love Steph Curry so much is it's not just that he's a great player. Like, people love this guy.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason for that is he kind of just looks like a dude,
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look... I don't know, if you look at LeBron, like, you saw him on the street, you'd be like, oh my god, look at that man. Like, if you didn't know he was LeBron James, you would think, oh my god, that's a ridiculous looking person. Like, he's huge and he's ripped and everything. But, like, if you just saw Steph Curry on the street and didn't know who he was, he would just look like a regular dude.
Definitely. That's why everyone likes him, I think, just because you can relate.
You relate to him. I could do that.
Yeah, what's it?
In the driveway, yeah, that's what I do. Just launch up the threes and stuff.
Which I'm glad people
relate to him.
I'm glad people have that confidence, but they really need to go go try that in the driveway, and then they'll see how amazing he is.
Because it's not gonna happen for you, not really.
So with that, I mentioned Wilt a little bit, but I got your trivia question this week.
Stat of the week.
So Wilt in 1962 averaged 50.4 a game, 22.9 rebounds, played all but 8 minutes of game action all year long, and scored 100 in a season. But he did not win the MVP. Do you know who won the MVP?
In 62?
Yes.
Jeez.
I'll give you a hint because it's tough. Eastern Conference.
Eastern Conference.
And actually try that one because if I give another hint, it'll give it away.
Hold on, I'm gonna look and see who was what the teams won in the league that year.
Think of like Knicks, Celtics, Sixers. Like think of that division.
It wasn't Oscar Robertson, was it?
No.
Oh no, Bill Russell.
Yes, Bill Russell.
Yeah. If you ever listen to Bill Simmons talk about this stuff, like with Wilt versus Russell, he will fight anyone who says Wilt was better than Russell.
I mean,
obviously he's a huge Celtics homer, but I actually agree with him, just because like Bill Russell has like 11 rings, and he played like defense in a way that people really didn't at the time, and when they played each other, Bill always outplayed Wilt. So,
It tells you how good Bill Russell was when Wilt can score 100 in a game, average 50 and 23, and not be the most valuable player. Like, that says it all right there.
right, exactly. Right, yeah, and Russell that year, his line, he averaged 19 points and 24 rebounds a game.
Exactly.
And he was the best defensive player in the league.
For like 20 years in a row, it seemed like.
Yeah, he played, how many seasons did he play? He played, he played 13 seasons. He was an all-star in 12 of them, and he won rings in 11 of them.
That's not even like, that's just pathetic.
Right, that's not something you see anymore.
Yeah, so there's your trivia fact of the week. So that's gonna wrap up baseball for this show. I mean, basketball for this show. Sorry, I got my mind on baseball since it's about to be opening day.
Yeah, this is why I love sports this week, because there are a few sporting things I love more than MLB opening day. I'm a huge Mets fan, as you'll find out throughout the year. The Mets have been the single love of my life as long as I've lived.
Abysmal until last year.
Yeah, last year was probably, I don't know, last fall might have been like the greatest season of my life. Just watching them get to the World Series.
So, quick fact about Jonah. Every single sports team he likes has never achieved any success in his lifetime.
Yep, I've never had one of my favorite professional sports teams win a championship in my life. I like the Knicks, the Cowboys, and the Nets, and the Islanders. The most recent championship was the Cowboys 92 or 93, which is 5 years before I was born. So, I'm really starved for some success here, and that's why I'm super excited for this Mets season, because I think this might finally be the year. I don't know.
Knock on a lot of wood. Knock on a lot of wood.
Yeah, knock on wood on my desk right here. But I think that if every team plays to their full potential, I think that the Mets will win the World Series. That's obviously no guarantee. But this is like the best pitching staff that I have ever seen. The best starting pitching staff, anyway, that I've ever seen.
Did you just hear about Matt Harvey?
Yeah, it wasn't his arm. He had like a blood clot in his bladder or something.
Yeah, so he should be fine.
It's super weird. Yeah, no, he should be fine. They just scratched him from his last spring start.
He's
still gonna start opening day.
I heard he's gonna throw a couple innings tomorrow too. So.
Yeah, so thank God that was a false alarm. When I heard like Matt Harvey scratched from start, I was like, oh my God, this isn't happening again.
For
Tommy John surgery. I was actually at his last start before Tommy John surgery. He left the game early, and we were like, uh-oh.
The worst part about it was when it said non-medical or non-baseball injury, and you're like, oh God, what now?
Right, because like I thought he was like sick or something. Like I thought it would be like a Chris Bosh type issue.
Yeah,
maybe.
blood clots are making their way into sports big time nowadays.
Yeah, apparently this is like a pretty minor thing, luckily. But I like this Mets team more than I have ever loved a single sports team, probably ever. Which is putting a lot of stakes on it, obviously. But I don't know. What do we think of the World Series this year?
All right, so it is 2016, so that means the Giants should be the favorites, right?
That's true. It's an even year.
Not to
They
mention
won the last 3 even year World Series.
Not to mention, they did just sign Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija to go along with Madison Bumgarner, who potentially is one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. I don't really want to pick them because I don't know how much I trust their offense yet. I have to see that to believe it. Put me on the spot. I will go with the Nationals. Sorry.
Wow. See, I think, it's your hometown team out here.
Yeah, nowadays. I mean, I'm still a Yankees fan, but the Nationals are my National League team. I think this is the first year in a really long time they haven't been picked as the favorite to win the division or to make a run in the playoffs.
This is true.
So, finally, with the pressure off, I think they're going to succeed. They do still have Max Scherzer and Strasburg to go along with the MVP of the NL, Bryce Harper. I think this is the year for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that you have to look at with baseball is that the two leagues are in very different spots right now, the American League and National League. Like, the American League is very balanced. There's no teams that I can't see making the playoffs in the American League, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But they don't really have the best teams. I mean, I like Texas, I like Houston, I like the Blue Jays, the Yankees are solid too, and the Red Sox even. But I think that all of the best teams and all of the worst teams in the league are all in the National League. So I think that, I mean, there's obviously 5 playoff spots in the National League. I think there are 7 playoff teams in the National League. And 2 of those teams are not going to make it. Those teams being the Mets, the Nationals, Cardinals, Pirates, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and Giants. I think those are all playoff caliber teams, and 2 of those teams are going to unfortunately miss out on a playoff spot they probably deserve and would get in the American League. To win the World Series, I mean, I'm not going to not go with the Mets because I'm going to go with my heart, and I think that I think you need to admit it's as good a possibility as any other, I guess.
Yeah. No, the pitching staff and the 3-game and that 3-man rotation when they get into the playoffs is almost unbeatable.
I think you're their pitcher. Yeah, so as I was saying, I just think that if the Mets pitchers stay healthy in the playoffs, if they have all 3 of those guys, and they don't have to pitch anyone else, it doesn't matter how good their fielding is, it barely matters how good their hitting is, because they're just going to strike out everybody. And so I think that the Mets have as good a shot as anybody else. I'm going to go with my heart, pick them to win the World Series. But I do think that whoever wins the National League is going to be the World Series champion, because I think that whoever comes out of that loaded NL playoffs will have beaten the best teams in the league and will thus be the best team in the league.
Agreed. And also early next year prediction, I think the Cubs are 1 year away. I think they need to mesh as a team a little bit. Maybe get one more starting pitcher, and then I think they're gonna be the team to beat for a long time. But Hayward's young, Bryant's young, Schwarber's young, Addison, all those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people were overlooking the Cubs last year just because they were a wild card team, but they won 97 games last year.
The only reason they were a wild card team is because the Cardinals had an amazing year.
Right, and they just added Jason Hayward and John Lackey to a 97-win team. Like, this is probably the most talented team on paper, but I am not ready to pick the Cubs to win a World Series if that's okay with everyone else.
Maybe next year, but I just think they need maybe one more piece, which is crazy to say, I know, but I don't know.
Right, I mean, that was the 97-win team last year, but the Mets tore them to pieces in the NLCS last year.
Yeah.
They swept them. The Cubs didn't lead the whole series. So I think that the Cubs probably need to mature a little bit still, but I think that this might be not necessarily this year, but this might be the team that wins the Cubs World Series finally.
Yeah, definitely. So then that's not really a sleeper because they're 97 wins, but like you said. But so let's go into a sleeper. Let's go one from the AL, one from the NL.
All right. So I'm going to start with my American League sleeper, and that's going to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I think that
good one.
I think that they get overlooked pretty often because they're a low-budget team. But I think that betting the over on the Rays win total is often a good bet.
Yeah.
Because they always seem to make the most of what they have, even though they don't have Joe Madden anymore. They have a strong pitching staff. We've talked about Chris Archer in the past, but he's a legitimate ace. They have like 5 or 6 solid, good starting pitchers. They just traded for Corey Dickerson from Colorado, who's a solid hitting outfielder. They still have Evan Longoria on that roster, and I don't think that I don't think necessarily they're going to win the World Series, but I think that they're kind of off people's radar, and do not be surprised if they make the playoffs in the American League, because that league's a toss-up, and I think that they're as talented as anybody. Yeah,
I like that was my second pick actually for sleeper. The team I'm about to pick is not much of a sleeper since they made the playoffs last year, but just Houston Astros are always a sleeper in my mind because they used to be so bad. Carlos Correa is one of the best players in baseball, young players in baseball. I think the difference from last year to this year, they stayed the same essentially with their team. I think that one difference is George Springer is coming in healthy, and hopefully will stay healthy all year. And I think he's gonna kill it this year.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think with my NL sleeper, I'm going to cheat a little bit on this because I don't think I think those 7 teams I mentioned before, I think it's almost certain that 5 playoff teams are going to come from those 7 teams. But I think that people are sleeping too much on the Dodgers.
Yeah,
I
was thinking that too.
I think that people think just because they lost Greinke and didn't really replace him with anybody as good as him specifically, that they're going to have a lot of problems this year. But this is probably the deepest baseball team I've ever seen. They don't have as much frontline talent as the Mets or the Cubs or the Cardinals or possibly even the Giants. But this is a team that has the best pitcher in baseball beyond doubt in Clayton Kershaw.
Yep.
And they go too deep at every position. Like, they're the only team that's basically immune to injury troubles. Like, they have backups that can play every position. They don't have a number 2 starter as good as Greinke, but they have about 7 number 3 starters.
Injuries could be a problem early, though.
Right. I mean, they certainly have some guys that are injury prone, but they knew that in building this roster, and they built a roster that has backups at every position that are capable of sliding right in if anybody gets hurt. They have Corey Seager, who's probably going to start the year as their starting shortstop.
Can he can win Rookie of the Year this year, right? Because he didn't play.
Yeah, he didn't play enough games last year to be eligible last year for rookie status, so he is still a rookie this year.
I would say that's basically a lock that he's going to win that one.
And he's still he's still the number 1 prospect in the game by pretty much everybody's standards. And I think that this Dodgers team is still very dangerous, and I think that they have as good a shot, probably better shot than even anybody else to make the playoffs this year. I think that, don't sleep on the Dodgers just because the Mets beat them last year and because they didn't replace Greinke. I think that they're a very solid team, and they're going to be a little bit of a cheating sleeper team in the National League.
Yeah, I think that's a wild card team for sure. And then I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I know you mentioned them also, but their outfield is so good. McCutchen's incredible. Polanco, Marte, I mean, they're deep.
Yeah, Marte might be the best left fielder out there right now.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a legitimate 5-tool guy. He's really good.
I mean, did Alvarez sign anywhere, or is he still out there?
Alvarez is with the Orioles now.
Okay.
He's going to probably DH for them, which is where he was supposed to be all
along. So that's going to hurt Pittsburgh, not having him. But
it's a loss of power for sure.
Yeah, but McCutchen's one of the best players in baseball. You can't sleep on him at all. I could see them making a push to get into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make any huge noise in the playoffs, but I wouldn't be surprised if they win a couple games.
Yeah, they've been quietly one of the best teams in baseball over the last 3 years after being bad for such a long time.
Yeah, and they're quietly developing a solid pitching staff with Burnett last year Burnett and Volquez were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean this is a team that they have Tyler Glasnow, their top prospect, who should be coming out to pitch for them this year, so that'll offset the loss of Burnett. And they have Garrett Cole, who's
Garrett Cole's good.
Who's one of the best young pitchers in baseball, along with the Mets guys. And so I think the Pirates have as good a shot at anybody also making the playoffs. I think in my mind they just missed out, but I certainly would not be surprised to see them in the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row.
I agree. All right, so to end with baseball, we're going to go with AL MVP and Cy Young and NL MVP and Cy Young.
All right, so for my let's start with the National League this time.
Okay.
For the Cy Young Award, I'm going to I want badly to go with my man Noah Syndergaard.
Thor.
Because he just has the best fastball I've ever seen. I mean, this guy can throw 98 on a regular basis and put it where he wants it, which is not something you ever see from a starting pitcher. But I'm going to be boring and go with Clayton Kershaw. I just think he's the best pitcher in the league. He's the best pitcher we've seen in a really long time. know. Hopefully for the Dodgers, this is the year he makes a decent playoff start. But we'll put that aside for now. This award isn't about the playoffs, so I'm going to go with Kershaw.
Since I was going to go there too, but to keep it not boring, because I think he's going to win anyways, I'm going to go with someone way out in left field, John Lester.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. I think in order for the Cubs to be good, he's got to have, good in the playoffs, he's got to have a solid season. I think he will. This is the first year I can remember that he's not been like a focal point of some sort of off-season talk.
Yeah, he's been right with Boston and with Oakland, and he's been a free agent.
Yeah, and
been in trade talks.
In Boston and in Oakland, I feel like he never. Boston, he got more than Oakland, but I feel like he never got the run support he needed. And I think this Cubs lineup will give him every run he ever needed.
Yeah, I think you could definitely see Lester winning 20 games this year.
Yeah,
that's certainly on the table.
He does. He struggled a little bit towards the end of last year, which scares me to picking that. But I think that's going to motivate him over the offseason. Hopefully it did, and I think he'll come in focused, and he knows how good that team is. So I think that's going to help him too.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I think. Let's see, for National League MVP, this is an interesting conversation. There's a lot of people that could be in the mix for this.
Don't pick Yoenis Cespedes, please.
I'm not. No, I won't. I'm going to go with Anthony Rizzo, first baseman for the Cubs.
Nice.
He's been in the running the last couple of years. I think that probably the best player in the National League is and will continue to be Bryce Harper, but I don't think they're going to want to give the award to him 2 years in a row. And I think that Rizzo's been pretty much a solid runner-up a couple years running now. He's one of the best first basemen in baseball. He's going to be on a team that's one of the best in baseball. And I think that this is going to be the year that Anthony Rizzo wins the MVP.
Since I picked the Nationals, I have to go with Bryce Harper. But
yeah,
I know that's a boring pick, but he might be the best player in baseball right now.
Well, yeah, there's no more boring than my Kershaw pick, so I understand that.
But they are, they're the two of the best at their position in baseball, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, there's a lot of candidates in the NL, I think, that could potentially win it, all depending on how their team does, obviously.
Yeah, the National League is absolutely loaded.
Wouldn't be surprised to see Chris Bryant win it either.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, but I was looking at the Cubs roster and I was like, there's like 3 guys on here that could win MVP actually.
Yeah, exactly. Hayward could come in and have a great year and win it too.
So. Hayward was also on my mind. That's a huge offseason acquisition, obviously.
Yeah, that's crazy. For a long time too, because he's so young.
I know, they signed him to a long contract. He's got some opt-outs in it, but if he wants to stay with the team that's going to be in contention for a long time, the Cubs are in it.
Yep. So, you want to go to the AL now?
Yeah, my Cy Young Award winner is a guy that we've now talked about twice. Hello?
Yeah, who you got there?
Oh, okay. My Cy Young winner is going to be Chris Archer.
Nice, I like it.
We talked about him a couple of times. I think he's due for some recognition. Picking the Rays as my sleeper team, I'm going to stick with that and say that this is going to be the year that Chris Archer gets noticed. He might not have a great winning record in the past because he's been on some Rays teams that have been pretty weak in recent years, but he's kept his ERA low over the last couple of years. He's 27 this year. This is when a lot of guys hit their prime. And I think that this is the year that Chris Archer really breaks out on the national stage. I'm picking him to win the Cy Young.
I'm going to go with another guy that's not usually talked about much, but should be. I think Sonny Gray's going to win it this year.
Oh, that's a good pick. I didn't even think of that.
I don't think the A's are going to make a lot of noise, and he probably won't have a great record because of that. But, ERA-wise, he's usually one of the top 5. I think he's got great stuff. And I think he's going to have a good year. Like I said, probably not win-loss record, but overall, pitching-wise, he's going to have a great year.
So, for AL MVP, I'm very tempted by a couple of choices here, but I'm going to go with Mike Trout. I think that he's deserved it in each of the past 4 years. and they don't obviously want to give it to people that often,
Yeah.
But he's only won one MVP, and he's probably deserved more than that. And since he didn't win it last year, I think that he's going to put up a season equally as good as we've seen in recent years, which is just incredible baseball, like nothing we've seen since Mickey Mantle, arguably. He's had a career beginning that's been better than everybody except I was reading this on Fangraphs, that was better than anybody except possibly Ted Williams and Ty Cobb, people from a really long time ago. And keep in mind this kid's only 24. He could be one of the top 5 players ever by the time he's done, and I think that they're going to give him a deserved MVP award this year.
I like that. I couldn't. It would be hard to say that Mike Trout's not going to be in the conversation. I'm going to go with Correa just because I think it's going to be another good year for the Astros. The kid's so good, so young, so good, so talented.
Yeah, he's 21. He's practically our age.
Yeah, it's crazy. The older that we get, the more I realize that could have been, well, not literally could have been me, but that seriously could have been me.
Yeah, it's scary. This has been, I was saying to my dad about this, this has been my life for a long time.
Yeah.
So we're talking about hockey, and I was talking about Connor McDavid, who's 2 weeks older than me, and he's younger than you.
Yeah.
And he's tearing up the NHL right now. It's just crazy to see these kids just who are our age. We're just sitting here in our dorm rooms and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 players on Duke that are younger than me this whole year and will be until next season. It's they won't even be 19 until next year. It's crazy.
I know, it's wild.
Also, MVP for AL besides Correa, who I think is going to win it. This is a sleeper, and this is really out there, but he wasn't out there when he was on the Yankees a little bit ago. But Robinson Cano.
Yeah.
If Seattle makes any noise whatsoever, I know Nelson Cruz is obviously fantastic. He's going to hit 50 home runs probably again. But Cano I just saw he had a 2 home run game the other day in spring training, and he hit a ball farther than I've ever seen a baseball be hit. And he just seems like he's so locked in right now. He's had a rough go of things the last couple of years.
He had a really tough first half of last year, but in the second half he started to look like himself again.
Yeah,
and that's certainly an encouraging sign for the Mariners.
When the Yankees lost him, that was heartbreaking to me that they choose not to pay the one player I think that could have helped them for a long time. But
look, here are the stats. Pre-All-Star break, he was hitting .251. He had 6 home runs, and then
251 for
at-bats after the All-Star break, he hit .331 with 15 home runs. He really turned it on, and I think that if he can carry that over into this year, that's certainly a possibility.
And .251 for most people is solid average, but for Robinson Cano, that's terrible.
Second baseman for sure.
Yeah,
right?
But for him, that's terrible because he hits his sweetest swing for .330 every year.
Mm-hmm.
So you got anything else for baseball?
I just want to mention Manny Machado. I was thinking about him for AL MVP also. I think the Orioles are probably the worst team in that division right now. I think that they probably have the least chance of making the playoffs. I think that the Blue Jays, the Yankees, Tampa, and Boston could all win that division conceivably. I don't think Baltimore really has enough, but I've been very impressed with what I've seen from Manny Machado. I've seen it. He has probably one of the sweetest swings I've ever seen. He's a great defender at third base. You can't ask for much more of a young player than him. So he's definitely a guy I'd watch out for AL MVP also. There's a lot of talent in the American League, even if it's not quite as good overall as National.
Yeah, there is. And that's a lot of young talent too. So then let's end with this one question. What do you think the Royals are going to do this year?
See, all the advanced stats have been saying for years that the Royals were not as good as they've played and whatever, and predicting every year that they were not going to be as good. I think this is sort of similar to how I feel about Syracuse. I guess we're just going to keep picking them to lose until they actually do. But I think this is, I don't know. I don't think the Royals are going to be very good this year. I think their division's pretty weak, so it's possible they can still win it. But they won 95 games last year. I don't see them winning more than around 85 this year.
I think the Tigers are going to win the division, and then I think the Royals would be the wild card. But watch out for Cleveland too.
Watch out for Cleveland. Watch out for the White Sox. Even they just they traded for Todd Frazier. They have one of the better pitching staffs in the league under the radar.
Yeah, I think Cleveland could rival you guys for best pitching staff too.
Yeah, Cleveland might have the best pitching staff in the American League. I think you could make an argument for that.
Yeah, I think they probably do.
And I don't know. I think Kansas City's starting pitching is just not that strong. They're rolling out Omar Infante at second base, who should have retired 4 years ago. I mean, obviously we've said this before about the Royals, and all the commentators have said this before about the Royals, but I think this might be the year they don't make the playoffs.
All right. Is that a little salty from last year still, or is that?
Well, it's a little bit salty for sure. I mean, they're opening the season against the Mets, which the schedule was announced before the World Series matchup was even happening. So it's just a coincidence that the opener happens to be a World Series rematch.
Not a bad way to start the year.
But I'm very much looking forward to that game. I think that the Mets are going to be energized watching the Royals get their rings at home. Seeing those rings that could have been theirs, I think they're going to be energized and they're going to beat Kansas City. That's what I'm hoping.
Is it 3-game series?
I think it might only be 2 games to start the year.
I say they split it.
Yeah, it is 2 games. They're playing Sunday night, which is the official season opener, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. They're not playing Monday, and they're playing Tuesday.
I say Mets win Sunday, Royals win Tuesday.
Well, it's going to be Matt Harvey starting on Sunday, despite the bladder clots or whatever it is. So.
And then who, DeGrom? Probably.
Syndergaard's starting the second game.
What the heck?
Syndergaard, my boy.
Why?
Because he's a flamethrower. Dude.
Okay, well, DeGrom was your best pitcher last year.
They were all our best pitchers.
Yeah, okay, whatever. With that, we need to go.
Yeah, it's
all right.
about time.
Yeah, we gotta actually do this school thing that we don't want to do. But
yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you like the new debate style of the podcast. We'll try to do that more often. And we'll catch you next week.
Yep, catch you next week. Thanks for listening.